Ever since I found out I could talk to my grandpa in the afterlife through a psychic medium, I realized he has so many nuggets of wisdom to share with me, which I hope to share with you guys. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe down below. If you have any questions for Grandpa Luan, comment below and they might be featured in our next video. So thanks again for watching, and I hope you enjoy.
Hi, Maria.
Oh, hi, Trey.
Some more shower thoughts. So in today's
Love it.
episode, I want to talk to Grandpa about, how do I say this without scaring people off, violence and conflict in the world and natural disasters. So we're going to touch upon, I'm just going to shoot the questions away, just like things going on in the world. Like, for example, for, let's say, mass shootings, gun violence, you know, where do you see that future going? Because let's say, for example, will US people in the US, will we always have guns? Will that be something that will never change? And also, what's the point of mass shootings happening? Because, for example, Sandy Hook, all these innocent people and so many children died from it. Like, is there a purpose to it? Like, why do these things seem to keep happening?
Well, it was interesting because before you started at elaborating on your question, he was showing me how the natural disasters and the human violence are linked together as an energy that links them, and we'll get into that. But I just wanted to say that so I don't forget. But as far as, let's start with the gun violence and say, you know, are guns going to, in the United States, always be around? And he's showing me like there will always be guns, likely, but there's going to be a lot less of them, and people will start to view guns differently. There's going to be a different there's going to be people who are definitely gun enthusiasts, but there's a certain evolution of humanity where people aren't going to feel the need to defend themselves in that way with guns. There's going to be other things that, especially technologically, that come into the world that are alternatives to people using guns as a defense. Like as we develop more connected systems through technology, we'll be able to feel safer. Of course, there's a flip side of that where people also feel overly managed. But as a society, there's going to be some creative things that are invented and developed that allow people to be connected to safety in different ways than just like a physical gun. So as far as people buying guns for self-defense, like that will just go down. Like the desire for that will go down because there's all these alternatives. But there will always be people that like collecting guns, but there's going to be limitations on what kinds of guns they can collect. And it's going to take some time, but like that's going to eventually happen where the guns are limited. The types of guns able to be purchased will be limited. And it's interesting. I was like, oh, technology, yeah, okay. And he's saying too, like he's saying, oh, you know, he's referring to this app that I have right now that is I pay a few dollars a month, and it's like a big giant safety button, and so I can tap the button and emergency services will come directly to me, to my location using GPS. You know, so I've stopped carrying pepper spray because I have a direct link. It like bypasses 911. It goes directly to emergency services. They call you back. If you don't pick up, they send someone directly to your location. You know, and that's a pretty low tech comparative to what's available in the future. But that gives me personally a sense of security, but still part of me is like, maybe I need some pepper spray sometimes, certain situations.
Yeah.
But he's referring to tech.
But yeah.
He's like, oh, see stuff like that. That's just like the beginning of what type of stuff will flourish as time goes on. So does that answer that question about the availability of guns in our society in America?
Yeah. And do you think that kind of ties in with the mental health will get better? And so that'll decrease the likelihood of, let's say, someone mentally unstable going off and shooting random people?
So because of all the gun violence, and we'll get into a little bit about what it causes it too, but he's saying that we will learn so much from these horrific events, from a mental health standpoint, sociology standpoint, anthropology standpoint. This will leave a mark in human history that many different scholars will try to study and understand, and many types of medical professionals and mental health professionals will study and develop insights that will help to treat mental illness better, and also create standards for early intervention of things. People like teachers will become more aware of behavior that's odd with their students. So before developmentally, there will be more awareness with teachers to be able to identify that their student needs help early on, so that he's saying like Columbine, those kids kind of went under the radar. Like they were weird, but the parents on their own did not take the initiative, even though they saw something was off, to get their children help. They just kind of turned a blind eye, and that did not help the children. And he's saying that in a future version of society, as we work through these things, let's say you have kids like that, those issues, those will never get that far, because there will be things identified as early elementary school. And it's not a labeling, but it's more of a support. So seeing if a child has social awkwardness and isolates themselves, things like that kid will be given the opportunity to have more support, and children in school also have more ways to express themselves. And because he's saying the way the school system is right now is it's not teaching kids to be able to express themselves authentically, and they feel pressure. And he said it's like a pressure cooker. They're just years and years of being in a pressure cooker in our school system. And the teachers aren't given the tools and the freedom to explore new things. He's saying it's coming from lawmakers, and it's not really coming from, there are things coming from inside the school system itself and the people actually teaching, but there's things that are just imposed on teaching professionals that they have to work with because it's mandated. But there's a lot of teachers that are feeling like it's not actually, there needs to be something even better.
Yeah.
So it kind of, a lot of it in America starts in school. The way our culture is and the way our school culture is, it can create these opportunities for children who maybe have a propensity in the future to become mentally ill to develop more tendencies towards violence because of the alienation and rejection. The teachers don't understand them, the kids don't understand them, their parents are aloof or are unequipped and don't know where to go to help the child. There's just so many factors, but it really does start in school. And so you see, so people used to go and shoot up there's been so many school shootings specifically, but he's saying symbolically for Sandy Hook that shooter had trauma at that age. The Sandy Hook children were the age that he was when he had his first assaults, let's say, on his psyche and his mental emotional state, where he really started to feel a sense of rejection and all that. So for him, it was symbolic to go back to a place that resembled where this all started for him.
Wow.
And to shoot up a school. And to us, it is horrific in every way. But in his mind, there was a symbology there. And so if he shot, I believe, his mother, I don't know if there was a dad, but he shot one of his parents. And that's also symbolic, because he was saying through that action, he was going back in time and reliving kind of the things he wished he had power when he was younger.
Yeah.
To say to his mother, like, you're not getting me, you're not giving me the help I need, like I need help, I need love, I need this. And he was saying, like, now I'm going to punish you. and I'm going to work through that symbolism in a very violent way because it had festered and he had developmental illness and all these things and was not being cared for like he should have. And there was some key points in his life along the way where people could have intervened and they didn't. And that's our free will. All of us have free will when we're working with one another.
Yeah.
And if we feel there's something wrong and we don't act upon it and we just let it go because it's too complicated, it's too whatever, that one very simple moment could have changed the course of that person's life. And that goes for all the shooters. There's always something pivotal like that in their lives that cause them to be feeling very, very disenfranchised at a very young age with humans. And they start to see humans as not human. They start to see them as like animals, or like they start to see them as projections. Like they start to lose the concept of people being flesh and blood beings. Like, it's weird. They start to detach, dissociate. So when they're shooting people, they don't, in their minds, it's not hitting them that they're shooting flesh and blood beings. It's symbolism to them. It's symbolic. It's like, yeah,
Okay.
it's very strange the way he's showing me. But yeah, that's there's a common theme, and this is happening in the greater scheme of things so that we can, as a society, understand the early intervention of mental health, and also just reforming our mental health system, because there's a lot of things that have helped people, but it's ready for more breakthroughs, and we need more breakthroughs. We've done great with pharmaceuticals and stuff, but we actually need more innovation in the cognitive therapy aspect of things. Like, we're, under, like, it from neurology, from behavioral psychology. Like, where a lot of people are still learning from like Freud and Carl Jung and all this stuff, and like he's like, there needs to be a
New
fresh
Carl Jung.
take. Yeah, there
Yeah.
and he's saying there will be several professionals that kind of turn things on its head, and some of these people will specifically specialize in mass violent actions like shootings and bombings and things like that, and they will specifically study these things. There's already people studying them, we just don't know because they're still in the infancy of their research, but these studies will help to craft a new generation of mental health care.
Well, speaking of mass violence, where do you see the future on wars, or like, let's say, for example, North Korea, or like our future relationship with North Korea, or just any wars in general? Like, is there one day, I'm gonna say like world peace, but where people will be like, oh, hey, maybe we don't need to go to war anymore. We can just talk this out.
He's showing me that there may be a war that's not necessarily directly on our soil, but similar to like how we went to Iraq and sent people where there's conflict and it could last some years, but it's another country. But that really depends on several things that have to happen to, it's all probability, and it depends on how we use our free will. So there's potentials for wars, for sure. There's potentials for world wars. There's potentials for conflicts on foreign ground where we jump in, but the thing is that it all depends on if we as a society choose to use our free will to learn and grow, or if we get stuck in patterns. And there's being things presented to us to help us break outside of those patterns, but humans are very, very stubborn, and if we don't start to jump in and embrace the new energy, then we could end up in potentially in some wars. But like North Korea is definitely factor, China as well. But once we get the instability out of office right now, we might be able to avoid some of those conflicts that are actually brewing now.
Okay.
But he's giving me the feeling that there's a high probability that we will avoid some of these bigger conflicts. But it's going to take a lot of diplomacy, and that diplomacy is not going to come from the current necessarily administration, but a future administration. Like things could escalate. But again, that's why with predictions, like people get really hung up on predictions, and this is coming from me now, I don't feel it's responsible to give set in stone predictions, because that's just not how it works. We have free will. There's several timelines we could leap onto after this conversation. It's all probability waves, and it's as a society, we have to decide if we want to stay out of these wars that are definitely likelihoods in some timelines. So we have to make sure that we start to actually go inward and also reform the way we view ourselves as, let's say, Americans here. So there's going to be major changes in the way we see ourselves as Americans, and the way that people who work in government see their roles. And it's gonna start to slowly emerge as, especially once we start getting, the older generation starts to phase out. They retire, die.
Yeah.
There's going to be the new wave of thought coming from the next generation to succeed them will start to kind of influence, just like the previous generation did, more modern, just like the baby boomer generation was at that time brought in a modern approach. We're going to bring in from our experience with the economy and with, world issues and these wars that we grew up with around us, like our country going to all these conflicts. That's going to affect the way our generation, let's say, because we're millennials, runs government. And that's just how it goes in general. But yeah, it's going to take some time, obviously, but that's in the works.
In terms of, so we were talking about world conflict, I'm going to kind of go a little towards nature now. And, with all like earthquakes, hurricanes, etc., and people dying from it, is it to balance the earth? Is it to teach us a lesson? Or just some places are just unlucky?
He's saying it's not a matter of unluckiness, although from a human perspective, it definitely feels that way sometimes. Yeah. And it's extremely hard, for us to watch people go through this stuff. And we think, why?
Yeah.
What did they do? So it's actually a multifaceted answer. Mm-hmm. And this answer is not necessarily going to be comforting, but it's just talking about the mechanics of how it works, how natural events are created, why they happen so close together, why it seems that like there's violence also happening at the same time as like these crazy natural events, like what's going on. Yes. People might be kind of trying to see if is there a correlation in some way. Mm-hmm. And the answer is there's a correlation, yes. There's things going on in the background energetically that are forcing people's emotions to get to a peak, because our vibration as a human, actually the beings of Earth are in the process of having, whether they like it or not, their energy is being challenged by higher vibrations that the Earth is being enveloped in, because it's part of our shift process that those of you watching may or may not have heard about, an energetic shift that several, God, who knows how many, people in the metaphysical, arts, I don't know how to say, people working as mediums, psychics, and people in spiritual communities talk a lot about shift, and people interpret it differently. But from what he's showing me, the shift is basically, it's a time where we're supposed to, as a humanity, and the earth in general, is supposed to raise to a higher vibration. And that process can be very painful, because when, and this is a bit of like a quantum physics thing, and I'm a layman just trying to translate this. So basically, when an energy, let's use a metaphor of like two people. One person is extremely negative person. Like every time, even people get around them, they get out like, oh,
Negative Nancy.
Negative Nancy. The other person is a super positive person, and they're just like cheerful and happy. They both have very extreme, kind of opposite ends of the spectrum is how they embody that energy. Let's say like they're forced to sit down together at a table somewhere and their energy fields are now interacting. There's basically a standoff that happens. Where like it's like who's going to be the fastest gun in the West, right? Like, how they turn around and the fastest gun wins the shootouts. Yep. It's like that with energy. It's like this is the energy field like competing to be dominant, right? So whoever it is, either one of them could win, right? Just using it as this as an illustration. So the energy field that is able to maintain its strength and consistency better will overtake the other energy. So what will happen to the other person that does not win this energy showdown is that they will experience great discomfort. So what will happen is that the person who doesn't like win the energy showdown will experience like a discomfort because their energy has to artificially shift very far away from where it was before. So let's say the negative person loses because everyone always wants the bad guy to lose. Yeah. So let's say like happy, nice, like very positive, very comfortable with herself, like has worked through a lot of her issues. Let's say because she's done that work, her vibration is stronger and more
Let's call that person consistent. Joy.
Let's say Joy
versus negative Nancy.
Yeah, versus Nancy. So Joy is going to her energy is going to really aggravate Nancy because Nancy is unfamiliar with that energy. And so what's happening is, and this is what happens with crystals when you put a crystal in your energy field, is raising so fast. All of her shit that she hasn't worked on, Nancy hasn't worked on, is just like coming out. It's just like purging. And when you throw up, it's uncomfortable. Like no one genuinely likes to just like barf. It takes a lot out of you. So like your energy is like barfing up all this negative crap that's just been sitting in you for God knows how long since you were a kid. Whereas Joy has already worked on a lot of her shit and is comfortable in herself, so she can maintain that energy very strongly. So it's a purging process. So now imagine we are getting higher frequencies being enveloped. The earth is being enveloped in higher frequencies. So guess what? Even people that are normally like pretty cool, haven't worked on their shit, all that stuff's gonna like purge and people are gonna go nuts. So that's partially why we're having an increase in violence, is that like people's issues are getting told. That's happening. And it's
sorry, could you say again? You kind of got cut off.
Yeah. So what's happening right now is that people are getting aggravated by the shift in energy, but they don't understand why. And they don't have the framework to get help to work through this. And people are completely detached from their energetic bodies and their physical bodies. So is
this causing like the natural disasters? Because
Earth is going through the same thing.
Okay.
So Earth is a body too, right? So Earth is going through energetic shift, and Earth is a being. And people are going to think I sound like a nutso person, but the Earth is really, think about it. It really is a living being. And he shows it. He says the Earth is a body. So Grandpa's showing me the Earth actually being a physical being in of itself, and it is also feeling the effects of the energy shifting. So it's going to cause seismic events. It's going to cause wildlife events where the current, let's say the ocean current is too warm and fish die off, or it's too cold, and it just all these imbalances. So right now we're going through a polarizing, just as we're doing this, or actually let me show you like a bit more like this, and that's a lot. So we're like going through like energetic earthquakes, and it's jarring for our system, and we don't realize it. So people are just like, I don't know why I feel angry. I don't know why I just feel so pissy today. I don't understand why. And it's because like they're being forced to purge the crap they haven't worked on. So the energy is, we as a unit, the Earth and all of its inhabitants, have also been living at a certain frequency. So all the inhabitants of Earth are being lifted into a higher vibration. And that's just freaking uncomfortable. But also there is global warming for sure.
Yeah.
But Earth has natural events that, in addition, this is why I said it's multifaceted. Earth also has natural event, like schedule, I guess you could say, for it's shifting and growing. And guess what? The Earth has had shifts before. So we might view these like ice age and all these other things as like, oh, like it's just this like thing. It just happens, and it just happens every 500,000 years or whatever. But there was an energetic shift that happened back then too. And the Earth has gone through several energetic shifts, and some are very small. And now we're in a big, big shift. So we're going to see some weird weather stuff, weird events, bigger than ever, earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, and other bizarre phenomenon that we have not seen in a long time, or if ever. So that's what's going to keep happening because everybody's purging. So it's going to be a little chaos for a while, but it'll be for the better.
Okay.
Sorry, that was really long, but it's
no, nice to know. Like, yeah, it seems to be there's like a common pattern where it's kind of like we're all, you know, it can be a rocky ride, but in the end, it's for the better good and to smooth things out. I'm going to take it a little bit to a workplace environment now, sort of, where there's conflict with, okay, so there's obviously corporate America, and then there's also a lot of small businesses, right? And you know, people I know that who have small businesses and stuff like that, they have a hard time growing, or sometimes like corporate America is just rich, so they can always buy out things or like win over a lot of things. So will corporate America change? Will something happen to, let's say, the top leadership where there'll be a shift and change? You know, obviously, like there's like a Me Too movement, so that's why Harvey Weinstein was finally found out about and everything. But is there anything where maybe in the future there's going to be more successful small businesses popping up everywhere, or is it still, you know, with corporate America will be like still always be the big leaders?
Okay, so he's saying apply the concept of what the shift does, the shift energy does to the Earth and to inhabitants, and now just imagine it everywhere. It's just everything is getting upturned, getting stimulated, getting purged. So and here's the thing too, he says every generation born on this earth brings in a new type of energy. That's why we look at a generation 100 years ago and we see it doesn't at all match anywhere near what we feel today. And that's what we do. That's how we grow. It's an incremental change by the generation. So he's saying, along with the same way government is going to change a lot because of the new generation inheriting that, which have millennials have more of a focus on tech, environmental side effects, wildlife, also like just changing the paradigms of the female and male paradigm and all these other things in gender discrimination concerns and all this very interesting stuff that's showing up now. So our generation is going to bring that with them. So guess what? Anywhere they go, the corporate environment, you may notice it already if you guys is watching this, and especially like if you're millennials or even a little younger coming in and to like a dino work corporation that everyone's like, you know, 40s and 40s and up, you might come in and just feel like, what the frick is going on? Like, this is so backwards. This is, like, oh my God.
Old.
But it's a good company, so I'll stay here and put myself, you feel like you can't move up and you feel like you can't, you know, get anywhere because it's just so congested with like these older, whatever people, traditionalists and all this stuff. And you just feel like, man, I just want to make a change, but there's no opportunity or opening for you to do that. That's why a lot of them are going to this tech sector, because there you can actually be creative. And there's whole other set of things that will be coming out with reforming the tech sector as well. But let's just talk about like corporate type places. Like, that's the same exact thing. The same thing will happen in government will happen at these corporations, where people are going to get exposed. People are going to start standing up for themselves en masse. So you're going to have people as groups getting together and saying, no more of this. And this is already happening all over the place. So it's just going to get bigger and bigger. There's going to be more stuff blowing things out of the water, stuff being exposed that's been totally insidious and totally lying under the surface for all these years. And because of that, there's going to be major organizational changes. Also, there's going to be some things with the economy coming up, causing some hardship. and corporations are not going to be able to function the same way they were because it won't be conducive to the new economy. And I'm going to say over the next 10 years, you're going to see major shifts of the way corporate structures work and the way the economy works, and things that become available to citizens of let's just say America, because it's our point of reference here, and how they can benefit from society and things like that, and how they can move forward in society differently than we're used to. So these are some things that he's showing me are going to be the chain, like a part of a chain reaction. So if you are watching this and you are feeling, you're relating to this and saying, I really feel like I can work at several companies, or I've worked at this company and like, I don't feel like I have a voice here, but I want to have my voice be known, but there's no outlet for it. Either, hang in there, because there's going to be more opportunities for your voice to be heard, and don't stay somewhere if you feel it's stagnant. It's not good for you. Go somewhere where it's more flexible. Go somewhere where you're going to feel like your ideas and your voice can be heard more. And don't be afraid to stand up for what's right and to make people aware of what's going on if there's something that no one wants to talk about that's affecting people. So continue that. He's encouraging people to continue that effort.
Oh, thanks. And finally, we have actually a couple of reader questions from our previous comments on YouTube. And this one, I think I put it in here in this episode because it's kind of like conflict with oneself and other people they interact with. So I'm just going to read it. If we die / get killed / kill ourselves, it's not really a bad thing then. Seems like we are released from that physical attachment and our souls are free. Then why is death such a bad thing?
Okay, so he says this is just a part of the density of the human perspective. It doesn't become a bad thing when you pass over. You don't see it the same way you did when you were alive, and the reason for that is that while you're still connected to and attached in ways to your family, friends, your life, you see it differently. You see it's put into a much larger perspective that you have trouble seeing really when you're in a physical body and you're surrounded by all this physical logistics of being a human, and not wanting to let people down, not wanting to burden people, having conflicts with family, friends, and coworkers. It just all seems like too much sometimes, and people think, because it's hard for people to know, right, what happens when.
Sorry, you just got cut off.
I was saying, we think because it's not like everyone's just like talking to dead people openly yet. We assume like it feels so bad to us because we're left behind, and we see the physical impacts of someone's death, and person on the other side that you're mourning sees that too, but they see it differently. And it's not like they're just like, I'm so fine and like everything, I'm never sad anymore. Like it's
That's a great voice for a ghost, by the way.
I'm not sad. No, it's more of like they can process these emotions, they can process these things, and there's different levels of progression. From what spirits have shown me, it does feel like there are several levels of the crossing over process, and you can stay at certain levels for a while. And it's about kind of decompressing or debriefing almost like from your life, and understanding and processing those things energetically in your new form, in your returning to a form that you forgot you had, which is like a spirit form, an energy form. And you see things of less of your ego dies when you die, right? So you could still have preferences for things like, oh, I really miss those Cuban cigars that I used to smoke. Those were some beauties, but you're not going to be like,
I miss eating,
panicking about it. It's more of just like a fondness, like a memories, So, but now, so when that said, like when people cross over, it's usually a very nice transition for the most part. And people can choose to stay behind longer if they want, and we might view that as bad. And I personally don't think that it's fair to say that someone who wants to stay behind as a spirit is having a bad experience. They make the choice, obviously. It's not comfortable, really, to stay here, to linger near the 3D realm. They're not in the 3D. They're not in the third dimension, but they're kind of just parallel to it, kind of observing. I mean, but who's to say that's bad? Like, the word bad is just subjective. It's just a human jargon, right? So your grandpa wants people to understand that it's bad is something that a physical being can feel, but it doesn't mean that it's bad. It's inherently bad. That's just our way of judging things in this life. So to kind of simplify this, even if, let's say, you feel like you can't take it here anymore and you end your life, that feels very hard for people left behind. That's very, very hard. And usually what happens, from what I've learned about the other side, and Grandpa's going to give me some extra information here about it, is that when you pass away from something like suicide, there can be a bit of panic when the person is first outside of their body. And that can feel, they can kind of stay, sometimes they can kind of stay near their body for a while because they're a little bit like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. And then once they cross over, they do see the effects of what happened to their family. And it does hurt, right? It's not like the spirit's like, ha ha, F you guys, I'm good now. It's like, oh my gosh, I did this to my family and friends, and then look, and now so-and-so has been diagnosed with depression and blah, blah. They see that, and it does hurt them. But they have also tools and resources on the other side, and different types of spirits that are designed to help them through these different types of emotions. That's why I said there's several levels, it seems. But what he's saying is that they do tend to come back because they didn't get to finish what they were here for, and they ended their life, so they do have to come back, like, pretty quickly. But they don't have to, but
it's like to finish their soul contract on Earth.
Yeah. So, you know, I personally have had times where I've struggled with, you know, that feeling of frustration of, I don't know if this life thing is so freaking, I just don't feel understood. It's really, you know, I've had times like that. And I gotta say
Same.
But what helps me get through it is like, I don't want to have to come back here and redo this crap all over again. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're playing a video game and
you're almost at the boss.
Progress. Yeah, you're almost at the boss, and then you're just like, do something really stupid, and I'm not trying to minimize, you know, taking your own life at all. I'm just trying to cheer this conversation up.
It's kind of like in a video game when you're like, oh no, I could have prevented from losing all those 3 lives or whatever.
Yep. And then guess what happens with those lives? You have to go back and do the whole damn thing all over again until you freaking get it.
Yep.
So think of it like that, okay? And it's not all to minimize our lives or anything like that. It's just trying to put it in a more playful, because it's kind of heavy right now. This conversation is heavy. So, so he's saying that that even that is not, we can't say he said, from my perspective, we on this side wouldn't call that bad. We would call it a choice.
Okay.
You know? So
it sounds very neutral.
Yeah, it's a choice. Yeah. It's a choice. Yeah. And he said there are consequences and not a punishment. It's merely a reaction to your choice. So, you know, get the help. Get as much help as you think you might need. Don't do this type of thing alone. Because think of it, you've made so much progress in life already. You know, don't abandon that progress. There's so much more to learn, and there's
you're so close to the boss.
You're right. And so if anything, I know that's given me personally great comfort through those types of situations. And I'm still here today, and I just keep thinking of that, and it kind of snaps me out of it. So,
and look how many people you've helped.
That's the other thing too, is that, you know, believe it or not, no matter how minuscule you think your life is, you've helped and touched people all throughout your life in so many ways. So don't ever underestimate your importance.
Just to wrap up this episode session, I'm just going to end with one last question, two-part question is also another reader question. When you can customize your experience and you want a friend around you, what if that friend doesn't want to be around you? So is this just a representation of who they are, or does their will have to match your will? And then, so that's kind of like that scenario. And then obviously I want to end with the episode. What good can we do to play our part in obviously this theme of violence and conflict and natural disasters that within ourselves and in the world that we've talked about?
He's saying that's a very intuitive answer about wills matching wills, and he says that's fairly close to how the energies work. So he's saying, like, many times when you cross over and you want someone to be there, they will be there, especially if they're a loved one. Now, if it's someone you've like murdered or someone that you've had major heavy conflict with, that's when wills come in even more, because of vibrational match type of thing.
So like energy matching. Like, so for example, like if someone doesn't kind of want to hang out with you, or you got, is it more of like their energy is not really similar to your energy?
It's a resonance thing, just like on Earth, how we attract people in life. And some people we just can't get along with no matter what, or some people just, you feel there's a resistance.
Yeah.
And it's not that they don't want to see you, it's that they might be in a different level of processing, especially if they've just passed away as well, and they haven't had time to move through different levels of let's say dimensions, or of vibrational aspects of heaven. I'm just gonna use the word heaven because it makes people feel good. But like, if they haven't had a chance to, what he's showing me is like, get to a certain level of lifting the burdens of their life, they may just not be ready to accept, or to, like, they might still be working through some of their own things when they're crossing over. But if they've been crossed over for a while, likely that they have worked through a lot of that stuff, and if you want them to be there, they'll be there. So it depends on the resonance and what level, because they have free will too. Just because you cross to the other side doesn't mean you lose your free will. But if they're ready to see you, they'll be there.
Cool. Okay, and then finally, with all this to take away, what can we do in our part?
Okay, so he's saying something along the lines of, for one another, when something is taken.
Oh, sorry, you got cut off again.
He's saying in this time that we have so much hate for so many different things that challenge us. We tend to respond with frustration and anger when there's something that is against our beliefs and against what we expect from the world. And instead of, he said, it's understandable that we might have that as an initial reaction. But in order for us to grow, we have to start thinking of solutions and start to think about our part in the world as individuals. And he said there's a lot of complaining, but not a lot of problem solving. So he's saying everyone can jump online on a forum and say they can go back and forth, just like complaining and just getting ragey and finding other people that they're going to be ragey too. And he says in that way, you're not much better than the person you're against, because they came from maybe a place of rage and frustration too. So he's saying, and you can see this everywhere in political climates and social circles and communities. He's saying you see this everywhere. There's this kind of, that's the little structure that people have created of, like, instead of solving the problem, there are people that solve the problems, and guess what? Things get done, things happen, but it's people are, it's easy to just complain. It's easy to just find other people that are going to be complainers too. He's saying,
and mope with you.
Exactly. And he's saying, like, let's move outside of this blame game, and move into a solution and move into a solutions game. He's like, instead of creating communities of people who are angry at the same thing, and all you do is harness lower vibrational, feelings and all the worst things that humans can feel because you're so self-righteous. Instead, create a community around problem solving and problem solvers and people who are like want to put their brains together. He said he always interesting. He said we live in a crowdsourced world. Why can't we crowdsource solutions as well as and through that peace and 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 uh, and a revolution in the way we think as human beings. So that's what he would say. Because it's not easy, and
Yeah.
that's not people's gut reactions a lot of times.
No,
But
most people,
the thing-
I think they just do want to complain. You see it everywhere, online, at work, that kind of stuff.
He says that's true disempowerment. So
Mm.
choose empowerment through trying to think creatively about things.
Oh, thanks
Master
for that.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Grandpa.
Grandpa. Yeah. Oh, what a very wow. Sorry, this session I'm just very like, oh wow, that's a lot, So, all right, guys. Thank you for listening in, and until next time, see you guys. Bye, Maria.